afternoon, everybody. My name is Joel Wingard, and with my colleagues here today, we're going to tell and show you, educate and entertain you about some wild Irish women. We are here today representing the Bethlehem Celtic Reading Group. The reading group is part of the year-round educational and cross-cultural programming sponsored by the Celtic Cultural Alliance. I'm going to give a brief overview, and then my partners here are going to treat you to some words and music. First, though, I must give a shout-out to two people who were so kind to help get this little show together today, and those people are fiddler and fiddle player extraordinaire Allison Gillespie, who's with her band Blackwater over there right now, and Christopher Shore, director of the Moravian College Theater Company. Thank you, Allison. Thank you, Christopher. So, the reading group has run for 3 years now, meeting monthly from February through July in Bethlehem to discuss what we've read. And what we've read is always related some way to Celtic cultures. We've read stories, plays, poems, a biography, and a novel over the 3 years. We've had a different theme each year. In 2015, when we started, the theme was Celtic mythology. So we read a lot of ancient tales from 6 of the 7 Celtic nations. We also read stories of the Irish saints Patrick and Brigid, and although they were real people, so much of what they said and did has become mythologized by later writers and storytellers. So today, in the person of Andrea de Carlo, we're going to give you a little bit of Brigid, or St. Brigid of Kildare. Last year was the centennial of the Easter Rising, the 1916 armed rebellion that eventually led to Irish independence from British rule. 3 of the men who organized and led that revolt were serious poets. I'm talking about Pádraig Pearse, Sean McDonough, and Joseph Mary Plunkett. But in addition to that trio, we discussed other figures from that time in Irish history, and one of those was the only woman to hold a command post on Easter morning 1916, and the only one of the rebel leaders who was not executed. Today you'll hear a little more, and then I'm talking about Constance Gorbooth, Countess Markievicz. You'll hear some more today from Mary Kate Nealis over here about Con Markievicz. So this year our theme was Wild Irish Women, and from a book by that title we read short biographies of more than 20 women notable in Irish history. The author's criteria for including a woman in her collection were 3. 1, she had to be dead. 2, she had to have an Irish connection. And 3, and here comes the wild part, she had to have flouted or broken the accepted rules for female behavior in whatever time period she lived in. So, St. Brigid and Con Markievicz were in that book. We read about them, and so was a woman whose name in Irish is Granuaile, in English it's Grace O'Malley, the notorious pirate queen from the 16th century in County Mayo. Today, we're going to try to conjure Granuaile a little bit with the help of Dottie Moore. Wherever Dottie is. Okay. Here it is. So, in 3 years, 3 wild Irish women from different periods in history, 1 Catholic, 1 Protestant, 1 pagan. You will hear about them today through word and song, and I hope you'll join in our little sing-along at the conclusion of our show of a chorus in Irish of Granuaile's song. So now I'm going to give it to Andrea, to Carlo, and Brigid. Oh. Please hold your applause till all the performers finish. Thank you.
Peace be upon you. I am Brigid. The Roman Catholic Church knows me as Saint Brigid. In ancient Ireland, I was goddess of the people of Dona. Today, I still come up in Ireland. In contemporary Ireland, I am one of 3 patron saints, the others being Patrick and Columba. And I was known sometimes as Mary of the Gall, because I was known to have a lot of compassion for the weak, the ill, and the poor. I founded one of the first abbeys at Kildare, where my nuns, tended to the eternal flame, and I'll tell you more about that abbey later. The Celtic goddess, Brigid, has many similarities to me, and she was still celebrated in my lifetime in the 5th century. We both looked after households, crops and animals, poets, and metalworkers. St. Brigid's cross, which I'm holding here, I borrowed from the pagan Celts as a symbol of my faith and to teach others around me about my faith, much like St. Patrick borrowed the shamrock in order to illustrate the Holy Trinity, taking a familiar symbol and giving it new meaning. We have a shared feast today, which is February 1st. It was once known as Imbolc, or the start of spring, when life returns after the dead of winter. Yes, I took vows of chastity and poverty, but I was no shrinking violet. In fact, my name in Gaelic translates to fiery arrow. I was direct, confident, and outgoing. Many times, I defied the orders of men who did not understand my faith and what it required of me. I loved, most favorite, to give my father's own property to poor people without his permission. He was not entirely thrilled about this. Once I gave his jewel-covered sword to a pauper so the man could sell it so he could eat. My father didn't understand. In fact, he tried to sell me. I tricked the King of Leinster in order to get land for my abbey at Kildare. He would not give me the land I wanted for my own abbey. So, I asked him, would he give me as much land as my cloak would cover? He said, fine. He figured that would be 3 or 4 yards, right? Well, I had my nuns take a corner, and I had one nun run north with one corner, one nun run south, one run east, and one run west, and that cloak stretched and stretched and stretched until it covered all the land I needed for my monastery. Finally, the king backed down, and he gave me land suitable for my abbey. Yes, I am Brigid. I'd like to share today a song with you. It is in part by a 19th century nun, as well as 2 contemporary theologians, and it is about me and some of what I have done in Ireland. Sweetest saint of Erin's Isle, see thy children kneel before thee, turn on us a mother's smile. Sancta Mater, hear us plead for faith and hope and holy love. Sweet Saint Brigid, spouse of Jesus, sent to us from heaven above. Dear Saint Brigid, e'er embracing outcasts, orphans, and the poor, you reach out and hold the sinners, sharing bread and hope and more. Bright Saint Brigid, fiery arrow, brings her wit to serve the Lord, grows abundance out of meager crumbs, without weapon, without sword. Sweet Saint Brigid, Erin's children, far and near, o'er land and sea, in the world and in the cloister, fondly turn with love to thee. Sancta Mater, soothe the mourner, shield the weary, tempted soul. Sweet Saint Brigid, guide thy children to thy bright and happy home. Sancta Mater, soothe the mourner, shield the weary, tempted soul. Sweet Saint Brigid, guide thy children to thy bright and happy home. I would like to introduce to you next a woman who was wild in a different way, Countess Markievicz.
Thank you, Brigid. Hi, my name is Markievicz. I know that doesn't sound very Irish, but Markievicz was my married name. I actually was born Constance Georgina Gore Booth to wealthy Protestant landowners from County Sligo. Our family estate was named Lissadell. I loved my family all my life, but my growing political awareness drew me to revolutionary action. I had my first taste of jail in 1911 after I was arrested for addressing the Irish Republican Brotherhood. In 19, I myself joined the Irish Citizens Army, and I had a command position during the Rising 1916. I was jailed and sentenced to be executed along with the male leading rebels, but I was spared because I was of the fair sex. The fair sex. Fair my arse. My fashion advice to women was to dress suitably in short skirts and strong boots. Put your jewels away in the bank and get yourself a revolver. After World War I was the first woman elected to the British Parliament. I was in a British jail at the time for making a seditious speech, but that's not important, okay? What's important is that I, along with the other 72 newly elected representatives from my party, refused to take our seats, and we formed an Irish Parliament instead. That was against the law, what was against the British law. So we went to war for our independence, and I was right there with the men in the fight in that trenches too. When I was a young girl growing up, I was acquainted with a man who would go on to win the Nobel Prize for Literature, William Butler Yeats. He admired me then, and we did remain lifelong friends. But Willie may have been a good poet, but he would write poems about me that lamented that I gave away the good life that I had for the cause of the Irish people. He once condemned me for having an opinionated mind, and he also referred to me as an old bellows full of angry wind. He may have been a great poet, but we had different agendas. I myself said one time, I am a rebel, an unconvertible rebel to one thing, a free and independent republic. So, I'll read to you exactly what Willie would have to say about me. Here's a portion of a poem he wrote about after I had spent time in prison for the 1916 Rise team. On a political prisoner. She that but little patience knew, from childhood on, had now so much a grey gull lost its fear, and flew down to her and her cell, and there alit. And there endured her fingers' touch, and from her fingers ate its bit. Did she, in touching that lone wing, recall the years before her mind became a bitter, an abstract thing? Her thoughts on popular enmity, blind and leader of the blind, drinking the foul ditch where they lie. A few years later, Yeats wrote another poem about me and my younger sister Eva. Here's part of that poem. In memory of Eva Gore Booth and Markievicz. The light of evening, Lissadell, great windows open to the south. Two girls in silk kimonos, both beautiful, one a gazelle. But a raving autumn shears blossoms from the summer's wreath. The older is condemned to death. Pardoned, drags out lonely years, conspiring among the ignorant. I know not what the younger dreams, some vague utopia, and she seems, when withered old and skeleton gaunt, an image of such politics. Many a time I think to seek one or the other out, and speak of that old Georgian mansion, mix pictures of the mind, recall that table and the talk of youth. Two girls in silk kimonos, both beautiful, one a gazelle. And now let me introduce you to another fighting Irish woman. Here is Granuaile.
Welcome. I am Granuaile. The English called me Grace O'Malley. They call me a few other things too, like nurse of all rebellions from the province of Connacht, a notable traitorist, and a most notable feminine sea captain. And that I was, even though I carried my sword. I had a fleet of ships and 900 men at my command. I was the only female chieftain among all the Celtic clans, and I was feared all along the western and southern coasts of Ireland. Not only was I shrewd to trade, I was an accomplished sailor, and I would pirate too, when it suited me, for sure. One of my many times that I got into trouble was when I had my ships stop merchant ships going into Galway Bay. I would make those quivering sea captains, menly sea captains, pay for their passage with coins, merchandise, or battle if need be. I have some chocolate coins that I'm going to pass among the audience. When the governor of Connacht had finally hassled me into a corner, who had taken my son and half-brother prisoner, I had had enough. I sailed to England to meet with Elizabeth Tudor, or better known as Queen Elizabeth I. I risked my imprisonment and possible execution, but I got to meet with her face to face with the mighty Queen. Reluctantly, I had to make a pledge, though. I had to withhold aid to any rebelling Irish clan. But the Queen ordered my son and half-brother freed, the restoration of my property, and gave her assurance that I would be left alone to go back to Ireland and do what I had done before, be powerful by land and sea, which is the O'Malley banner here, because the Irish had their banners with their names, and I found that in battle, by carrying their banners, they would know who the clan members were from their family. I'm not going to sing now. Granuaile, the queen of the Atlantic Sea.
Thank you.
fight you on land and sea to save our beloved Ireland. For I am the queen of the Atlantic Sea. Thanks.
I mean, that was great. Thank you, Dottie, Mary Kate, and Andrea. So, and how about a round of applause for our backup musicians today? Annabelle Ribault on fiddle, and George Fairchild on Bohdran and penny whistle. And thank you, everyone, for coming out today. Just a couple of things briefly. The Bethlehem Celtic Reading Group will continue in 2018. Don't know the theme yet, but watch for information on the Celtic Classic website later on this fall. And the second thing is the players and I will be happy to answer questions once we clear the stage over in this area. So, in addition to the song Dottie wrote that song and performed today. There are numerous other musical treatments of Grace O'Malley. One of those has an Irish title that's a little hard to get your tongue around, so it's become known informally in English as Granuaile's song. The tune may be familiar to some of you because it's similar to that old standard, what do you do with a drunken sailor? What do you do with a... Okay. Now, on being distributed by our interns here were cards. I don't know if there's enough to go all the way around, but cards that have the chorus to Granuaile's song in Irish. I think it's on the left as you look at it in the middle, and an English phonetic translation to the right of that. Okay, so that's to make it a little easier to sing. But first, let's just try saying the lines in Irish using the phonetic translation. Just try saying it to get the feel of the Gaelic language on your tongue. Okay? So it's O Ro She da Baha Wolia. O Ro She da Baha Wolia. O Ro She da Baha Wolia. And then you pause a little bit for Anish Hochdan Towering. Wanna try it again? Just the two. One line, repeat twice, and then we'll say the last one. So, O Ro She da Baha Wolia. O Ro She da Baha Wolia. O Ro She da Baha Wolia. Anish Hochdan Towering. All right. What? She's got a note. We're going to sing it up here first, and then we'll get you all to join in, okay? All right, let's go.